Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to give you guys a bit of an introduction. So, obviously, the idea of today is to give you a live demo of Sage Intacct, and really the idea is just to provide a walkthrough of sort of the core financials, the reporting, but with a touch on some of the other elements like multi-entity and consolidation. Now, by no means do we even scratch the surface with Sage Intacct today. It's really just to show you the core functionality that a lot of organizations get. Now, I have got a bit of a presentation. Please don't be alarmed. It's not a 30 slide deck presentation by any means. It's very short. The idea is really just to introduce who we are and what gives us the right to sort of talk about Sage Intacct and demo the software. So in terms of introductions, my name is Rory. I'm a sales consultant here with Vision33, and my role is to work with new prospective customers to understand the challenges that they have with their current systems, the impact that those challenges bring, and what it is that they need from a new finance system. So I work with our prospective customers through the process, ensuring that Intacct aligns with what they need. And then at the point of, saying, yes, we want to go ahead, I then hand over to my colleague Hamza and his team, which is a nice sort of intro there for Hamza. So Hamza is our delivery manager here in the UK. He is responsible for overseeing all of our projects, and he has a team of consultants that work for him. Now, Hamza himself is Sage through and through, so he is himself a certified Sage Intacct consultant and has led many Intacct implementations over the last 5 to 6 years. But he himself is also a qualified accountant and has worked in finance teams as well, so has actually been on your side of the fence. And if I'm not mistaken, has also done a finance transformation project in one of his previous roles. So a really knowledgeable guy and a great resource to have with us on the webinar. Now, in terms of who we are, it is important that you select the right finance system. I think for the most part is ensuring that you are looking at the right product, ERP or finance system. However, I do feel it's also equally important that you pick the right partner, because I think this is what will also drive a lot of your decision making. And the reason being is, for the most part, a lot of these systems can do what it is that you need. Obviously, each system will do things differently, slightly better than the other, but I think it's the partner that will also provide a lot more weight behind your experience of that system. And that's really where we come in. So we are actually the largest global Sage Intacct partner with Sage. We have 30 years plus working with Sage in total, but really our role is we're very much a finance transformation organization, and we really do value those partnerships that we have with our customers. It's much more than just an implementation and then throwing you over to the fence for support team. We will work very closely with you from the sales process, so with me, through to delivery, and then your ongoing account management. And we have our customers that have been with us for 5, 10, 15 years. So we really want to be working closely with our organizations. And because of that, there is a great number of different types of sectors that we work in. We are not just sort of aligned to one particular sector. So I can see on this webinar today, we have, charities, service-based organizations. We've actually got some recruitment company joining us today. And for those from the recruitment side of things, just to let you guys know that we are also partnered with the REC. We do a lot of work within the recruitment space, giving talks, and we've actually got an integration sort of platform in place for things, if you use, a CRM or a time and billings solution. But the key takeaway here, though, is like it really doesn't matter where you're coming from. The team have a lot of experience working with these different types of organizations. But there's also a lot of cross knowledge as well from the different sectors we've worked in. So the experience that you gain when we implement Sage Intacct, with Hamza and Jimmy, who's one of our consultants who's joining us today, is that, they will help lead you by also best practice, but also taking into consideration what it is that you need as an organization and finance team. And I think this really speaks volumes to Sage Intacct itself, because it is what we refer to as a best-of-breed finance solution. It's not an ERP. So time to value is a lot faster. We can typically implement Sage within, 3 months, as opposed to 6, 9 months that you might find with an ERP. And again, with ERP solutions, you tend to have to really build from the ground up. Whereas with Intacct, you kind of get a lot out of it from the get-go. And again, we work with you to further customize and configure it. So one of the things that you'll hear on the demo with Hamza is dimensions. So dimensions might be a brand new concept for you or something that you're familiar with already, but Intacct is very much driven by dimensions. So moving away from a clunky, messy chart of accounts and really streamlining your chart of accounts as a whole. Now, as I said, we're going to be sort of demoing the core financials today, which is what everybody gets as part of Intacct with, multi-entity and global consolidations, because that typically tends to be a requirement. But there is so much more than Intacct can do. And this is where the modularity of it really comes into its element, because again, unlike other solutions where you pay a fixed fee per year and you might only be using a small percentage of that system, with Intacct, we ensure that you get what you need for the first year, maybe two, and you only pay for what you need. And of course, working with your, customer success manager, you identify the other areas that you might need to grow into, and Intacct can provide that using one of its modules. Intacct does actually have its kind of niche verticals that it's sort of been designed to work specifically in. So as I mentioned, not-for-profit services, recruitment-based companies. What I mean by this is that when we go to provision your environment, we will do so on the basis of the type of organization that you are. So, things like terminology, the type of reports that you need to be producing from a compliancy perspective will already be there in the system. There's also modules that are only relevant to a particular sector that we wouldn't be able to sort of sell to, someone in the not-for-profit sector. So, for example, if you're a SaaS organization, there are SaaS dashboards more around, customer analytics, contract management, which is not necessarily something that we would provide for a charity, as an example. So, you can really tailor Intacct to what it is that you need, but as I say, without having to put a huge amount of work into it. Now, please don't be alarmed if you're thinking, well, Sage Intacct sounds like it's a system that's built for large enterprise organizations who have multiple entities. No. Sage Intacct is also built in mind with small organizations as well. So if you're coming to us today and you're only a single entity with aspirations to perhaps grow, Sage Intacct would still be a very good fit for you, because it's been built as a scalable solution. The idea is that it's there to grow with you and not hinder your growth. So you might be stepping off something like 50, QuickBooks Zero, and you're looking for the next step up into a solution that's going to help you grow. This is where Intacct really comes into play. However, you also might be using something that is like NetSuite or Dynamics, and for whatever reason you want to move something into Intacct. Again, we see that happen quite a fair bit. But if you are a multi-entity organization, whether here in the UK or internationally, Intacct can handle that very well. It's powered by global capabilities. What I mean by that is that it has a very powerful consolidation module, multi-currency, advanced bookkeeping, multi-book accounting, sorry. So really, it's just a question of trying to understand what it is that you need now and where do you need to be in the next couple of years. And I want to introduce Saltbox to you very quickly. Saltbox is our own in-house integration platform. So when we do speak with new prospective customers, there typically tends to be integration requirements on the table, whether that be from, a CRM solution, an e-commerce platform, maybe even a billing solution, something like that. It doesn't really matter. The trick here is that, integrations for these systems may not be provided as of yet. So we provide Saltbox, and the idea is to kind of get you guys away from having multiple data silos where you're having to do sort of exports into, Excel sheets, run various macros to be able to then produce that into a format that you can then push through into your finance system, which, if you are experiencing that, as you'll know, it takes a lot of time. The idea with Saltbox is that we just need to understand the mappings and the workflows as we refer to them. So what is it that needs to come to Intacct? Is there anything that needs to go out from Intacct back to your systems? And then we sort of have Saltbox. So Saltbox is something that you would never need to touch. It just works sort of behind the scenes and ensuring that those data points are sort of connected. We have over 30 plus industry connectors. That's a handful of some of them that we've seen, but we are also the strategic integration partner for Sage as well. So we work with Sage through one of our sort of internal channels and either sell Saltbox to them directly or to other partners within the Sage Intacct community. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Hamza. There is one question already. If we can answer that very quickly, Hamza, sorry.
Yeah. Sure.
So we have a bespoke third-party direct debit module within our Sage 200 professional platform. Does Sage Intacct offer an inbuilt solution?
So it depends on what the direct debit module does. If it's used to receive the direct debits coming straight into your bank and then allocate them in the system, there should be something on the Intacct marketplace that can accommodate that. Absolutely. A couple to name a few, you might be looking at Orchid EFT or B2REL, something along those lines. But yeah, there should be a couple on there.
Yeah. Thanks, Hamza. We'd work with you to identify what it is that you need. But yeah, I think Orchid is sort of one of the more popular ones that we tend to recommend and put forward.
Brilliant. All right, so we'll jump straight into the demo here, and I'll take you guys through a few different bits and bobs that we're going to cover today. So I've got a bit of an agenda to go through, and hopefully it's going to give you a little bit of an insight into what Sage Intacct is, how it works, how it sort of looks, and sort of just navigating around the system and getting familiar with all the different functionality pieces that it has in store. So this is my Sage Intacct demo environment. It's a multi-currency, multi-entity environment. So you can see that I've got entities all across the world there in different currencies as well. And I'm going to start us off on this dashboard that you can see on the screen here. Now, this dashboard is what I would call a consolidated dashboard, which means that it's taking all of my different entities that I've got in all the different currencies. It's consolidating all the data and all the transactions together into the same currency, and it's displaying them on this dashboard. So that someone like a CFO or a CEO could come straight onto here and get all the information that they need. So straight across the top there, we can see our company performance with our revenue, total cost, and net income in a nice graph. Everything you see on this dashboard is drillable as well. So if you saw a figure that you thought looked a bit weird or a bit too high, a bit too low, you could actually click on it and that would drill out the report that makes up that number. So it's popped out into a separate screen. Let's paste it over here. And it would pull up the report like this, where you can see a full breakdown of what makes up that full number. And again, everything in blue is drillable. So you could carry on drilling in further and further until you got right down to the detail level that shows you exactly what that number comes from. Okie doke. Back up to the dashboard. So you can see here, I've got a variety of different things that make it really easy to get a really high level information overview of what's going on in the company without actually having to drill in and start looking at transactional elements. It saves a lot of time as well doing that because you can just come straight onto this dashboard and you've got everything you need on the same page already pre-ran. This dashboard's real time too, so everything on here is live. If people are in the background making changes or adding transactions, this dashboard will automatically update also. So we can see there things like our total revenue, our total labor costs, operating expenses. Got a few graphs here as well, which shows our revenue by the different locations that we've got in the company. So I can see here USA 1's doing very well, but USA 2 isn't doing that well. It's a lot less than the others. So again, we can drill into that and find out what's actually going on there and do a bit of analysis if we needed to. Further on down, we've got things like cash on hand, we've got our EBITDA trends and things like that. Again, a real good example of how comprehensive you could make your Intacct environment. One thing that I like to point out is over here on the right-hand side, this is where we start to introduce you to something called dimensions in Sage Intacct. Now, dimensions in Sage Intacct are basically a way of categorizing your transactions into loads of different buckets, meaning that rather than the traditional chart of accounts approach where you have 500 different chart of account codes and everything goes into a specific code and then your P&L is incredibly long, what you can now do is have a much more concise chart of accounts and use the dimensions in the system to categorize those transactions and then report by dimension. So over here on the right-hand side, you can see I've actually got a graph that shows me operating expense by department, which means I can see if I hover over it, how much the services department spent, how much admin spent, how much marketing spent, sales, and so on and so on. Again, all drillable. So if I clicked onto the services department, pulls out that piece of the pie chart, and I'll just pop the report over here on this other side. It's just popped out onto a separate screen. We can see what makes up that figure at the bottom there, that 924 grand in services department. So this is a full P&L, but it's filtered by the services area, and we can actually see what's went on in that section. Okay, again, everything is fully drillable. So popping back to this dashboard here. Again, this is a very in-depth and detailed dashboard. Now, you may want to utilize these for a subject matter expert, for example, so someone like an accounts receivable manager. And for that, we do have a lot more dashboards that you can look to build. Again, these are all ones that I've just built as examples, and you get full training on how to build these as part of implementation. So you can build as many as you want to your own heart's content. So another one that I might show you is this one here, the role-based AR manager dashboard. And I'm going to jump into my United Kingdom entity for this one. And that's the entity I'm going to be working in for the rest of the call. And here, this one's fully focused around the accounts receivable module. So we can see what the AR balance is, what our intercompany balance is. If there's any disputed invoices, we can see those too. We've got a full AR trade detail report, as well as all the invoices that are going onto the system. Again, completely live. So any transactions that are going on, you'll see them filtering onto this dashboard immediately. We can see our aging graph on the right-hand side. And we've got some quick navigation tools as well. So you can click on that, jump in, do any bits and bobs that you need to. So essentially use this dashboard as your pivot point and as your starting point when you start the day in the morning. And you can just work from here and jump into different areas of the system if you wanted to. Okie dokie. So a little bit more about dimensions, just so you guys can understand how they are used in the system. Intacct comes with a bunch of them as standard, and we can cater those dimensions to work however you want them to work in your business. And again, we do that as part of implementation. So you go through a nice workflow with us, a nice implementation journey, and we'll go through and understand your business and then make suggestions on what we think is the best way for you to use the dimensions in the system. Now, as a default, all the dimensions have a name. So you've got things like departments, locations, etc. But you can rename any of those to suit your business. So as an example, recently we've been working with a haulage company and they renamed departments to trucks, right? And they track their trucks by that dimension. So a really good way to do that. If you are an NFP as well, so if you're working as a charity or if you need fund tracking or restricted funds, unrestricted funds, that type of stuff, we can also change one of them to manage your funds. So you can use one of the dimensions there to track various spends against the fund or various income against a certain fund, and then later on report on that as well. So if we jump into departments and just take a quick look, we can see here I've got a handful of different departments set up. So I've got things like IT, marketing, admin services, and sales. And I've also got a couple of other examples, block 1 and block 2, which again, is just another way you could potentially use them if you want. Again, come just an example, we've seen all different ways to use departments and use locations and things like that. But where they come in really handy and really powerful is when it comes time to report. So I'm just going to jump back into the entity here and show you guys an example of what an invoice entry might look like in Intacct. So we'll jump over to accounts receivable and AR sales invoices. Here we can see our accounts receivable sales ledger. I'm going to add a brand new invoice. On this, we've got my date at the top and my GL posting date, so the day it hits the ledger, as well as the day the invoice comes in. Select my customer. In this case, it's going to be Hamza Stationery Shop. And in the description, I'm just going to type in sold 500 pencils. Okay. For the term, we'll go with due upon receipt. And of course, the system is capable of multi-currency as well. So if you do need to transact in any of the currency in the world, you're more than welcome. I've only got a handful set up in here as required. But if you need to transact in any currency, it's absolutely fine to set up as well. The exchange rates are pulled from a website called oanda.com, and we call that the Intacct daily rate, which is a live rate pulled from that website. If for whatever reason you want to use a custom rate, you're more than welcome to. So you can select custom and type in your own rate there if you'd like. Otherwise, you can stick with the Intacct daily rate. Then it's down to the entries. So you would select your nominal code or your chart of account code. So we'll go with, let's go with revenue services. The memo pulls down from the description, which is great. And I'll put in my transaction amount. So let's say this costs £1,000, or I'm going to make £1,000 here. For my department, I'm going to say this falls into the sales department. And I've got other dimensions there as well, you can see, which I'm purposely ignoring at the moment. And I can select my tax detail. I'm transacting in the United Kingdom here. So of course it would be UK VAT that I'm using. I'm just going to go with UK sale of goods standard rate, 20%. That puts on my £200 tax. When I'm ready, I can go ahead and post this invoice. Now, the key bit on that invoice there was me selecting the department, because now that that department has been categorized in that transaction, I could actually report by that department to see that revenue. So if I pop over to the report center, and with Intacct, you get a whole plethora of reports that come straight out of the box with the system. So you're going to get a whole ton of them, and you get things like profit and loss, but then also expanded out by all your different dimensions that you have in Intacct, as well as things like balance sheets, cash flow statements, various other bits and bobs there as well. You can see there's quite a lot of them. And on top of that, you also get 2 financial report writers. So you're actually able to build your own reports, which again, you're given full training on during implementation. So you'll be able to use those as well. And we also have something called the Sage Intacct University, which has loads of training courses on there if you want to do some self-learning. Okie dokie. So now that I've got that transaction in there, I could actually run a profit and loss by department. And I could say, right, run this as of today. And I want to see everything specifically in the sales department, and press OK. What that would then do is run a P&L, and it would show me everything within the sales department as of today. Okie doke. So I could drill into that further on, and I could see, right, we've got various different amounts in there. So there's £3,200 in there and 6 million odd elsewhere. So I could actually click on that figure and see what makes up that figure, which I'll bring up over here for you guys to see. So we can see it's made up of 3 different invoices. One of those invoices is the one I will have just posted today, which is, I believe, that one in the middle, 10th of December. Okie doke. This looks a bit odd because I can't actually see the memo. So what I'm going to do instead is hit customize and just change it to details and AP invoice or invoice number, hit view. Just like that, I've completely changed the way that this report shows, and I can actually now see detail. So there's my sold 500 pencils invoice. Again, from here, I could drill in further if I wanted to, but you can see how easily I'm clicking around the system to really easily pull the data that I need real quick. And that sort of theme goes across the rest of Intacct as well. So it's just as easy to sort of navigate it and jump in and out of things and get what you're looking for quite easily there. Okie doke. So we'll come back out of there. Awesome. And we'll head back over to our accounts receivable invoice section. So hopefully you guys are getting a little bit of a gist as to how the dimensions work. Again, completely customizable, and you can use those to pivot and record your transactions in various different buckets, which comes in really handy if you want a lot more granular information, which in my experience, a lot of companies could do with a lot more granular information. So yeah, that's in there to help you out. Now, another really, really good module that you can add on to Intacct, one of the many that you can add on, is revenue recognition. A lot of companies, increasingly so, are posting invoices or recording revenue, but then amortizing that revenue into a deferred revenue account and releasing it slowly over the course of 12 months or 6 months or 18 months, just so that the P&L doesn't look really good in 1 month and then not so good in the rest of the months, right? So what you can do is you can use revenue recognition for that. Now, typically, if you are doing revenue recognition already, you're probably tracking it on something like Microsoft Excel, where you're going in every month and posting a journal to move from deferred revenue into the respective revenue codes. With the revenue recognition module, you don't need to do that. So what you could do is you could set up your invoice as required. So I'm going to go with Hamza Stationery Shop again, and we'll say 500 pencils recognized over 12 months. So we've got that in there. We'll use the same term and the same currency, and we'll do the same GL code, revenue services, and we'll say this one this time was 1200. It goes into the Department of Services this time, and standard VAT on there as well. Before I hit post, I'm just going to drop into this lower section, and at the bottom there you can see we've got this RevRec section. In here, I'm going to say I want you to use the straight line 12 months template, and I want you to start recognizing revenue as of the 1st of January. This is the deferred revenue account, and the system will pick up the end date from the 12 months template and the corresponding revenue account from up here. I can go ahead and post this now. And when I do so, what the system will do is simultaneously generate a revenue recognition schedule. So if I jump back into there, to that invoice, and we take a look, and down here in the line, you can actually see there's now a schedule. So if I click on this schedule, it will show me the schedule that the system has generated on its own for me. So you can see there, I now have 12 equal postings starting in January, continuing on until December next year, £100 each month until it's fully recognized. Okie dokie. Now that's set up, I never need to worry about it again. I just leave it there, let it run on its own, and it will just cycle through all the way. Okie dokie. So that's another really, really good module that you can have in Intacct as well and add that on. All right. Now, pivoting over to the flip side of this coin, which is purchasing and accounts payable, for example, or purchase ledger, as you might know it. There's various different ways you can do this. So, of course, you do have your normal standard accounts payable ledger, which is literally the flip side of, or the inverse of what you've just seen there with accounts receivable. But you can also implement a procurement system or a P2P system or a PO system, however you'd like to call it. We call it purchasing in Sage Intacct. And in here, what you can actually do is set up bespoke workflows which work in the way that your company needs them to. So in this demo environment, I've got a handful of different workflows set up, so do bear with me. But I'm going to take you through a nice and simple one, which is up here at the top, we're going to start from purchase requisition. My requisition then gets converted to, we go all the way down here, purchase order. From a purchase order, I'm able to convert it to a fulfillment to say that I've received the product. And then from there, I can convert it to a vendor invoice or a supplier invoice, as we would call it in the UK. And if I ever needed to, I could return it or create a purchasing debit memo, also known as a credit note. Okie doke. So that's a workflow I'm going to take you guys down. Now, to give you a real life example, I set one up earlier with approvals as well. Now, approvals is always a really big thing when it comes to purchasing. I do know that with PO systems especially. So what I did was I set one up for us to have a look at, and we can look at the approvals as well. Now, Sage Intacct can usually manage any level of PO approvals or purchasing approvals that you might have in your company. And again, we can build those bespoke to what you guys need. So they can be based on value, they can be based on department, they can be based on location, they can be based on department and value, location and value, various other elements, and they can have multiple tiers and layers also. So here, if we look at this purchase requisition that I raised for a new laptop, what I said here was, I want a new laptop. This is the supplier. Here's all the details. Here's an attachment that I added in. And if you click on this little paperclip, it would show you the attachment too. This, I want one of them. This is how much it's going to cost. And then I hit submit. When I did that, the system made it hit an approval barrier. So the first approval layer was a user approval, and that was by one of my approvers, Emma. She approved it. After that, because it was over a certain threshold, it then required a value approval. So then it went off to a value approver. Once a value approver approved it, it then came back, I get a notification, and then I can convert this requisition to a purchase order. Okie doke, which is what I did. So I took this requisition, and usually you get a convert button here, but this obviously has already been done. And I converted it over to a purchase order. In the purchase order, the system will make your life very easy, because what it'll do is it'll copy everything over from the requisition for you, including the attachments, all the details, everything you need. And you can actually see here, this has been converted from purchase requisition 13. Okay. Down at the bottom, I didn't change anything. That's ready to go. I just made sure everything was correct. Hit post, and then straight from the system, I can hit print or email and email this directly out to my supplier. Okie doke. The supplier would get this PO. They can then fulfill it. Once that PO has been fulfilled, I would get probably a good dispatch note from them, or a fulfillment, or however you like to refer to it. And as well as that, I'll get an invoice as well. I can then convert my purchase order to a fulfillment, or in this case, I didn't need a fulfillment, so I just jumped straight over to supplier invoice, and I generated an invoice. Now, again, Intacct makes your life super easy, so it brings everything through in all the details, including the attachment, and it also tells you it's converted from purchase order 82. And on there, if you look lower down, we can see that the only difference is on an invoice, you have to add some VAT. All right. So once that's in there, I can go ahead and post it. And once it's posted, I can go over to my accounts payable ledger. The invoice would appear on this ledger as well, which will be on here somewhere. And I can process it like normal and pay it off and settle that invoice. Okay. So that's a sort of end-to-end process of what a PO system could look like. But again, that's just a really, really simple example. If we head back over to the workflows, you can see how complicated and comprehensive the workflows could be. Awesome. So pivoting from there, I'm going to jump over to another really, really great module that you can have in Sage Intacct, which is called consolidations. Now, consolidations is a very powerful module that you can use in Intacct to consolidate all of your entities together. So at the beginning of the demo, I showed you guys the consolidated dashboard. Now, if you are working in multi-currencies and multi-entities, consolidation is probably going to be a really important thing to you. Okie doke. Now, what you can do in Intacct is you can purchase this consolidation module or add it on and set up as many different consolidation books as you need. So here I've got a few set up. If we look at this top one, global locations, this one is consolidating into USD, and the translation method it's using for my balance sheet accounts is ending spot, and for my income statement accounts it's using the weighted average rate. Any currency exchange gain or loss is being posted into these GL codes, which I can later track if I need to. And the entities I'm consolidating are all of them into, of course, USD. All right. A really, really key component to this and incredibly powerful bit is the ability to auto eliminate inter-entity transactions, which if you do that manually at the moment, you'll know how much of a pain that can be. Intacct is going to manage the whole thing for you. So as part of implementation, we'll set up all of your inter-entity due to and due from accounts. When an inter-entity transaction happens, the system recognizes that and it will auto-eliminate that transaction upon consolidation. Okay, doke. We can see the elimination accounts get picked up at the end here. So you can see all my due to and due from accounts, and they'll all get their respective postings in there. Okay, doke. That means when I run my consolidated reports, I see only true transactions, not inter-entity ones. Okie doke. So that was one into USD. I've got another one set up here, which consolidates all of my entities into GBP using the same translation methods. And of course, I've got my auto elimination entered as well. In order to run a consolidation, incredibly simple. You jump onto run consolidation. And you can do this as often as you like. So if you want to do it every day, every minute of every day, you're more than welcome to do that if you want to. Okay, doke. All you do is you select your period. So I would say, I think I still need to consolidate the rest of my 2021. So we'll go ahead and do that. I would select the month I want to consolidate. You do a month at a time, hit consolidate, make sure your email address is correct and hit OK. The line will then turn blue to show that it's in progress. And once it turns green, you can go ahead and run your consolidated reports. Now, I've already run a consolidation in advance, so I can go ahead and run my reports immediately. So let's head over to the report center and let's pick a report that we can run in a consolidated fashion. So for this example, let's try running a profit and loss. So I'm going to run a profit and loss detail. Now, by default, the system will default the report to the accrual book. I don't want to run it based on the accrual book, of course. I want to run it based on one of my consolidation books. So just on the fly, at any point, you can select a completely different book and run a report in a completely different manner, which, again, if you are doing consolidations at the minute, you'll know how incredibly powerful that tool is. All right, so we'll go ahead and run it based on our global GBP book, which we've just consolidated, and we'll hit OK. And what the system will do is it will grab all the data. And in this report itself, I'm actually looking at it on a monthly basis, which is great. So Jan all the way to December. And we can see our full P&L broken up month by month in GBP for all of my different entities. Okay, and it's literally as quick as that. So in a matter of minutes, I'm able to consolidate 7 different entities in different currencies with inter-entity transactions into the same currency and run a report on it, which you can then just print out or email directly from Intacct. And that's it done for month-end consolidated reporting. Okay, incredibly powerful feature if you are in multi-entity and multi-currency as well as consolidations. Alrighty. So another thing whilst we're on this page here is the report itself. So at the moment, this is great because I can see a month-on-month comparison. But let's say I wanted to see a concatenation of all of those months without having to sit or export this to Excel and add all of these figures up. I just want one column at the end that just shows me the full year consolidated together. So you can do that super easy as well. So all you would do is you would edit the report. Again, you're going to get full training on how to use these report writers, but you can see how easy it is. So I'm going to hit on columns, add another column to the right here. And I'm just going to say, show me the current year. Don't expand this one. So because you can see there, they've got expanded by months. I'm not going to expand this one. Hit save and done. And we will go ahead and run the report again in exactly the same way. So we'll find that report, profit and loss detail. We'll run it for our global GBP, take that filter out, hit OK. So it's going to show us the same report, but now we will be able to see the column we've just added at the end there, which you can see is year ending 31st of December 2019, the full year concatenated together. And at the bottom, I get my totals. So I can see my net income across all of my different entities for 2019 was £3.5 million. Okay, not too bad. Alrighty, cool. So pivoting from there and onto the last topic of today's demo is cash management and bank feeds. Now, a real big topic, if you are looking into a new finance system, you're probably interested in what the reconciliation features are and how you can connect your banks in. So Intacct has an incredibly large bank feed network. We can essentially connect to any bank in the world and we can get a live feed from that bank into Sage Intacct on a live daily basis for you. It's usually based on the bank, but it's usually a day behind. Some banks do it on the same day, which is amazing. But yeah, again, just depends on your bank. But once that feed comes through, you can actually see those transactions flowing straight through into Intacct. Couple that up with the rule sets that you can set up in Intacct. You can have the system match off things on your behalf for you. So if you've got a payment in Intacct that's for £100 on the 10th of December, and you've got a payment in the bank that's for £100 on the 10th of December, and it's for the same person, the system will reconcile that together for you. So theoretically, when you get into your rec at the end of the month, the idea is that there's hardly anything for you to do. All you've got to do is review the transactions that the system's matched on your behalf for you, make sure you're happy, and then hit reconcile. Now, jumping into one of the reconciliations here, let's just go over to bank. I do have a dummy feed connected, so we can definitely take a look and see what it looks like. But this is your reconciliation screen. Incredibly simple. There's really not much to it. If you have used a finance system before, which I'm presuming you have, you'll be very familiar with what a bank rec looks like. You essentially have payments on your Intacct bank or your finance system bank on one side, and you have your bank statement on the other side. And all you got to do is match them together until the balance is zero. Okie doke. Here's your balance at the top. Here's your Intact bank, and here's your bank feed. Okie doke. You see there we've got a payment from, let's take that one, Creative Healthcare for 450. I would click match. That would show me all the transactions in my Intact system. I would find the corresponding payment. So there it is there, Creative Healthcare 450. Select it, press match. It'll take it off the screen. I'll move on to the next one. Okie doke. Really nothing too strenuous there. So from a basic element, you've got all the features you need, all the different bits and bobs you need to do, but couple that up again, like I say, with bank rule sets, and you have the system doing all of this manual clicking for you, and that's the game changer. Okie dokie. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to take you guys through today. The chat function should be open now, and I'll hand back over to Rory there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hamza. Okay, I've got a question, Hamza. Can we approve purchases based on budget availability?
You can do, absolutely. So with that, it's a real good option. What you can have is you can get something called spend management. I don't have it set up in the system here at all, but I can show you guys what it might look like. But what spend management does is it will have a look at your budgets once they're uploaded into the system there. And you can see how many modules we've got here. There's a lot of them. And spend management will have a look at your budget every time a purchase is going in. You can budget by department, location, all the different dimensions you've got as well. Here it is. It looks like I do have it configured, but we'll just carry on walking you through it. And the system will validate against that budget for various different dimensions for a certain period. And then you can actually ask it to stop certain transactions or approve them straight away if budgets are exceeded, as well as who to send emails to, all that kind of stuff. So it's incredibly detailed, and this module essentially handles all of that automatically for you, which is a real nice feature to have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hamza. We got the same question again that we had at the beginning about the direct debit module being available in Intacct. They have it currently in their Sage 200 platform. I guess just to sort of revisit that one, effectively, it depends what you're after. However, there are actually marketplace partners that we would likely point you to. And one of the examples that was given at the beginning that Hamza mentioned is Orchid EFT. However, there are others. So it's more a question of just trying to understand what it is that you need. And then we can sort of advise on the sort of the best route for you that way. And then does AP automation check bank details or duplicate invoices? I think they're referring to the OCR tool there, Hamza.
Yeah, so AP automation, let's have a look at that. What was that question again, Rory? Sorry, could you repeat it?
Does it check bank details or duplicate invoices?
It will check for duplicate invoices. Bank details would have to confirm with AP automation whether they could do that. And again, we could do that on a case-by-case basis. So if that's something you are looking into, it's definitely something they can pick up with yourself, Rory, and get an answer to that. But AP automation is real good in the sense of it has a lot of AI capability. So once you teach it something once, it'll know that that's the right way to do it next time as well. But duplicate invoices, 100%, it will check for those.
Yeah, thanks, Hamza. I think the asked that question once in a tender not too long ago on the bank detail side, so I cannot go back and review. And then how long does it take typically to implement Intacct from start to finish?
So it's usually around a 12-week process. So that takes you through 5 sort of stages. We'll do a kickoff, we'll do a blueprinting session, or we do 5 of them, 5, 6 of them based on the scope. And then we really map out how Intacct needs to work for you. Then we'll do a build, we'll do testing, and then we'll do go live. And then after that, pardon me, you get 2 weeks of go live hypercare. We do your first month end with you, as well as your first bank rec and your first VAT return. And that whole process is around 3 weeks or so. And then again, ongoing support is with us as well.
Thanks, Hamza. And then there's one last question. There's 2 questions come through. So doesn't Intacct integrate with Power BI or Excel?
Yeah, absolutely. You can integrate with both of them if you need it. Again, so just behind me on my background here, you can probably see we've got Saltbox there. If you've got any system with an open API, we can connect to it. So it's absolutely fine to do. We've done connections with Power BI and the likes of Excel as well. Again, as I mentioned at the start of the call, there is something called the Intacct Marketplace, which has basically loads of different apps on there that you can integrate in with Intacct, and they have direct connections. So you can really utilize those to bring in any data that you need.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hamza. And then another question, are the AP approval flows linked to a Sage user or via email only? So would we need non-finance users, in brackets, sales managers, marketing, to access Sage or not?
Yes, you do essentially. So anyone who needs to be an approver in the system needs to have access to the system. Having said that, though, you can get various different types of user licenses. So you can get a super cheap one, which is just for approvals or viewing only, and they can buy them in packs of hundreds, packs of 10, etc., etc. They can go on just approve stuff, but yes, they do need to have access to Intacct.
How much is super cheap? This is a question. I think that might
Probably a
be
question for you.
a follow-up. Yeah, I think if it's in relation to the first question, it's the same person. Yeah, as Hamza said, so those users that want to approve, say, purchase invoices, typically would be a read-only user. We refer to them as an employee user. They come in packs, as Hamza mentioned there. They start at 10. And I think off the top of my head, a 10 pack, I think it's about £1,300 for 10 users. But outside of that, there's still more that they could potentially do with the solution. So if it's heads of departments, for example, and you want to be able to give them access to look at reports, you're more than welcome to do so. It's just a question of working with you, with Hamza and the team, understanding what that looks like, but they can't process or actually transact in the system. Yeah, no worries. I mean, just to follow on, as I said, we are going to be in touch. I appreciate that you said some of you are just sort of, to use the terms of the window shopping, it's potentially something that you're not looking to do for another year. There are others that you might be actively looking into this at the moment. And if that's the case, I'll have a call with you to kind of comb through your requirements. And then what we will do is then kind of provide some level of, budgetary pricing, walk you through what the users are and everything. And then from there, again, if you need a more detailed demonstration, we can get that arranged. But until then, if you do have any questions, do reach out to us in the meantime. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I hope it was worthwhile for you, and hopefully speak to some of you in the near future. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.